My name's Mark Steeman, and I'm a professor of geography and planning here at CSU Chico.
What role do you play as an activist in the Chico scrap mill?
Well, I guess I am an activist on the campus as well in the community. I am president of the Butte Environmental Council and president of the Butte Environmental Council, so I'm involved in a number of different things in the community. Chico Scrap Metal, the junkyard, moved out there in 1983 to what was at the time the edge of town, into an old scrap metal yard that had already been there. But that neighborhood, the Chapman neighborhood, is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Chico, and there was an attempt to try to clean up that neighborhood, and it started in the late 80s, but then in the 90s was really kind of picking up steam and getting the neighborhood together. This idea of having neighborhood plans come together, get the neighborhood to come together, say, what do you want this neighborhood to be, what do you want to see happen in this area, and so they did. It's about a 3-year process, and at the end of that process, they came out with what was called the Chapman Neighborhood Plan. And it had a number of improvements that needed to be done to the area, to the streets, to the schools, and other things. And also the need to get rid of a number of inappropriate uses in a neighborhood. One of the things about planning, this is the planning department, is that we believe in certain sectors of the city being involved in certain types of activities and other areas not. And it's just not right from a planning perspective to put an industrial facility like a junkyard or a paving plant or a furniture refinishing plant right next to houses that have kids and backyards and play equipment and all that kind of stuff. So in 2000, the county came out with this plan and rezoned the area to be all residential, and told there's 6 businesses in there that they had to relocate, and that they had 5 years to do so. And 5 of the businesses did. There was a paving plant that made asphalt paving right next to the elementary schools. Thoroughly inappropriate. It moved. There was a furnishing and refinishing plant. And again, all those fumes coming out of there, thoroughly inappropriate. At the end of the period, all of the other businesses had moved except Chico Scrap. By this time, the city had taken over the area. They'd annexed the area. They annexed it in 2004. And they agreed to take the plan as was, and all of the things did. Chico Scrap Metal came and said, hey, we can't move. We need more time. They said, okay, we'll give you more time. They gave them, I think, 4 years. They came back 4 years later and said, hey, we still want to move, but we can't do it. We need more time. They said, okay, well, this is the last extension. After this, there'll be no more extensions. That extension comes to the end, and in the meantime, there's been a new city council election. No discussion about Chico Scrap, no discussion about the neighborhood plans, no discussions at all. New council gets appointed, new member gets in, and his very first measure as a new council member was to repeal the requirements that Chico Scrap move. So when people say, why are you moving the junkyard? No, we're holding up the plan so that the junkyard moves. And so that's what's up, is that now the city has said that the junkyard doesn't have to move. After the city saying that, all of a sudden they get to stay, the city's already, they put $2.5 million in investments. They put in new roads. Habitat for Humanity's built 6 houses back there. The other neighbors in that whole area have remodeled their houses. They've expanded their houses. They've done all these different types of stuff. Millions of dollars have been put into that area, and it's all going to be put in jeopardy if the scrapyard isn't required to fulfill this part of the bargain and move. So it's not we're moving the junkyard, we're keeping the city from allowing it to stay.
Mm. So what are the biggest challenges that Move the Junkyard is facing currently?
I think one is just that most people don't know the story. They don't know that this is not about us attacking a business. This is about a business that reneging on its promises to the community and to the whole area. There has been, because of the crime areas and the problems that they've had, they shut down. So now all of a sudden they're saying that this is the only place that they can recycle in town, which is not true. There's other places and there's other businesses that could step forward and do this type of business. And the third one is they seem to think that we're picking on this poor little small business, when historically this business has been one of the baddest actors in town. There's been a change between the father running it, who still owns and runs it, and now his daughter is the spokesperson, and she plays the victim, and it's not really a victim situation.
Why do you believe there are individuals who are against your movement?
I think most people who do it don't know the issues. that this is, they focus on the business and not think about the community and the neighborhood. They say it's going to cost this business money, but they don't talk about about all the money that these neighborhoods have invested in. This is a low-income neighborhood. Most people don't like them in this community. They don't think it's, they don't really care. The state law now is if Chico Scrap tried to put their place where they are, the state wouldn't let them because it's too close to an elementary school. But those are the poor kids, so who really cares, right? And it is historically a non-traditional school. It's historically a low-income school. The data all supports that, right? So this is just another example of environmental racism on these kids in this place. They would never allow this junkyard near any of the city council members' houses, but of course they don't live there.
Yeah. So what is the background of Chico City Council and the scrap metal, and are there any members who are against your protest?
Well, I think the biggest one is Andrew Coolidge, who people need to realize used to work for Chico Scrap Metal, used to work for, why am I forgetting their name anyway, John Scott, who was the owner of it, hired, when John Scott got fined by the EPA, and the district attorney actually fined him for illegal environmental practices. Rather than clean it up, he tried to get a new DA, and he had a campaign to get a new DA. He hired Andrew Coolidge to run that campaign. And so it's really weird that Andrew's very first move on the city council was to pay back his old boss. So that's the main thread of the city council. Other people will say that we're being anti-business. And I think it's really strange that they are going to reward the one business that did the wrong thing rather than the 5 businesses that did the right thing. If I was those businesses, I'd be pissed that this other one gets away with it. They don't seem to be caring about the value of money that the city put in. I mean, the city spent $2.5 million for a new road. It put in new safe routes to school. All of these were part of this plan that was going to make this whole neighborhood great, and this junkyard's now going to go ahead and remain. The real tragedy is that by just allowing them to just stripping out the removal process of the plan, is that there actually are what are called mitigations that are required by an industrial operation if they want it to be someplace like that. 6-foot tall concrete solid wall, setback of 6 feet from any place else, full of vegetation. None of that's going to happen. They're just going to let them stay. I mean, so it doesn't even conform to the codes that are required of the city of Chico. A great example of this was if you go up to the Save Mart or the shopping center in Mangrove, and they just put in at the, I don't think it's a Rite Aid, what's the other drug place in town? But anyway, there's a new drug place. There's a drive-through drug store, right? So you have a drive-through. Because they put a drive-through, they had to put a 6-foot wall behind the building so that the headlights wouldn't bother the neighbors. What about all the pollution from the junkyard? I mean, there's nothing like that done. So in the northern part, the rich part of town, you got to have a 6-foot wall to keep away from light pollution. But you go down into Chapman, fuck, who cares? I hope you got that on.
And what about those who in the city council are supporting, and how are they being active?
I think, well, most people who are supportive are trying to get these answers. More than anything, they don't think they could stop the tide of them stopping this, but wanting to have more of us actually applying the regulations that are on the books for this type of operation, applying them to this operation. And they tried and they failed. They weren't able to. So that's why we went to a ballot.
Have there been any accomplishments with this organization?
Which?
With accomplishments with Move the Junkyard?
Yeah, well, I think we've now rallied the community about this issue 3 times, right? You know the story, right? So this all goes through. They say that the junkyard can stay. We go out, we start circulating these petitions, and then all of a sudden they go, oops, we made a mistake, we have to do it over again. So we already had thousands of signatures already collected, and then we had to stop, and then they had to do it all over again. And we just now passed it at the dead of winter. It's the hardest time ever to collect signatures, and we just did. 7,200 signatures. I think that's a pretty good accomplishment.
And so now what changes do you want to see?
I want them to find a new place for that junkyard.
Junkyard?
Yeah, they got to move it. There are other places in town. If they don't want to, they can relocate to their main operation. They have 5 operations in the county. They could go back to Durham if they wanted to. So it's not like they're going to lose any money. They could open other places in other spots. There's plenty of vacant industrial land that you could do. I mean, the biggest thing is it's an industrial operation. It means it's outside. Everything's exposed to the air. Everyone kind of said, well, what about Sierra Nevada across the street? All that. It's all inside.
The paint building down the street, all inside. I mean, if they wanted to become legal there, they would just simply have to enclose the entire facility. Then you don't have to worry about the dust going and the noise going to the kids and all those other problems, but they don't want to do that.
Is there anything else you want to add to conclude?
The junkyard must go.